Maury, one of the 75 surprising truths of personal and professional success is teamwork is a result of conflict and confrontation, not consensus and agreement.
Right. You need to look at, to understand that, the purposes of a team. It has three purposes: to achieve the objectives of an organization, to cross-fertilize and use all the talent in the room, and to maximally develop everyone on the team. In order to do that, you have to challenge people and create conflict. If all you're doing is going for agreement and consensus, you water down the decision making and get a mediocre decision. And in fact, that's what most teams leave you with, is mediocrity and the least common denominator, which isn't of much help to the company or the individuals.
Most thinking in terms of teams in the last 40 or 50 years has been done in businesses and sometimes in other organizations. The concept of conflict and confrontation flies in the face. It's mostly about consensus and agreement. In fact, all of the methodology is designed to facilitate meetings is to get agreement and consensus.
Right, and that's done by conflict avoiders, and it's recommended by people who want to avoid conflict. And if you avoid conflict, you're not going to either get the best decision out of a team, and you're certainly not going to cross-fertilize much, and you're not going to grow people at all. Avoiding conflict would lead you to mediocrity, and that's what most of these organizations end up with when they try to do that. We're not interested in consensus when we run team meetings. We're interested in the notion of buy-in. Buy-in means I've tapped into people's strongest feelings. And when you do that, you'll get the best decision.
Maury, what tools do you need in order to deal with conflict and confrontation in the concept of a team meeting?
What you need is the most essential tool that you need is the ability to give people real-time feedback on how they're coming across, and in the specific area, how they're impacting the relationship and how they're really impacting the whole group. And when people get that kind of feedback, they can give you better information and better input. And they need to be challenged so that they can differentiate between legitimate feedback and legitimate input that's driving a better decision and some old hobby horse that they're on. Most teams that we work with start out with people just riding their hobby horses. And then they create mediocre decisions, all driven by personal agendas that are never identified by the facilitator.
So there's a lot of roles that are being played in the concept of a team that might have been brought in by their own personal history.
Oh yeah, there are always those roles, and that's how most team meetings start out. And one thing you need to do is diffuse those right away, and that's why we start out all our team meetings with personal professional check-ins. Because in any well-run team meeting, you need to diffuse relationship tension so you can get the task tension up high. And most meetings just start with a lot of relationship tension.
How do you deal with, then, in terms of conflict and confrontation, how do you deal with the onboard terrorist, the Dr. No, the one person who's always launching bombs but not necessarily contributing to the task at hand?
Well, that's dealt with by the ability to give that person feedback and be able to tell them right away, do you realize the impact you're having on your organization, on the team at that point, and do you realize what's going on with you at that time? That all you're doing at this point is intimidating people instead of adding anything productive to the discussion. But it requires a team facilitator is going to take the risk of generating conflict, and that's where the role of conflict comes in a well-run team. A team that has no conflict has too many people in the room. As we tell people all the time, if there's no conflict, no confrontation going on, you're not getting much valuable input.
So you would say that you absolutely have to have conflict and confrontation in order to have the growth that a company or a person needs.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Without the conflict, there's no growth because there's no real connection between people. And the conflict is where you get the intimacy established and the connection between people.
I have a feeling we're going to be returning to this theme of conflict and confrontation as a way of achieving personal and professional success throughout these truths.
Oh, I'm sure you are. Yeah, I'm sure we will.